It's a non-core banger. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Ayy, yeah, purpose and practice. Keep your mental sharp, learn all the tactics. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Ayy, yeah, purpose and practice. Podcast game, ayy, he got it mastered. It's encore.
Yo, peace to the family, peace to the community, the purpose and practice community out there who have been holding it down, representing and supporting the podcast. I'm very great. I'm just crazy grateful for the support that the podcast has been getting. We are back for another episode, and it's just wild that already we are 3 episodes into the second season, and I would have never thought that I would be 3 seasons deep or 2 seasons deep and 28 episodes deep into a podcast. But shout out to Mr. Encore. You just heard his intro. Who, on the real, he inspired me crazy with one of the things he was doing a couple of years ago, doing this beat challenge, this 365-day beat challenge. And I reached out to him. I was like, yo, fam, you just inspired me. This was on Real Talk, and you ask him, this is like New Year's Eve, the last day of the challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you inspired me. You know that challenge, Kyra?
Yeah,
you remember
I
he
was
doing
watching
it, right?
Yeah, and we're like fans, so that's very inspiring.
And it inspired me, and I reached out to him like New Year's Eve, and I was like, yo, you inspired me, and I'm gonna start something that I've been saying I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna go hard at it, and it's a podcast. And I was like, I want you to be the first guest on the podcast. So he was like, yo, I feel honored. And I was like, yo, that's love. And then from there, we connected and we did it. So shout out to him. And then shout out to, another former student, Anthony Stevenson, who put the video for the second season together.
That was
and this is why education is like, teaching is like, it's just straight. It's just love, because to see how young people grow and develop and have these skills and abilities that are just like crazy. So with that said, I just want to welcome y'all back. It's the purpose and practice. You know what we're here to do. We're here to bring y'all the food. We're here to bring y'all the knowledge. We're here to reach back and bring forward. And that's what I'm constantly trying to do. And the whole Sankofa movement is about doing just that. Reaching back and bringing forward. So that's where we're at tonight. And how fitting that I get to reach back to one of my former students, brilliant. My first year teaching, right? first year. I'm up there like, do I really know what I'm doing? Do I kind of know what I'm doing? And Kyra was in one of my original classes. And it's so funny because I had pictures in my garage, and I was looking at some pictures, and it was we were doing this Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, right.
I got mad heat for that because we were in, I think y'all was 7th grade, right? So
I was in 8th grade.
8th grade? Okay. So it was 8th grade, Real Talk. I introduced the 8th graders to Romeo and Juliet in 8th grade. So that was like, people in the English department from the high school was coming. Like, I was getting messages. I was getting added before added was a thing. Like, people were adding me like, how are you introducing Romeo and Juliet? Yeah. And
but
then
I like
had
the way you introduced it. Like, your class was, I will never forget your class and your teaching style. I think it was much needed. I remember like your rendition of Romeo and Juliet, you made it so digestible. It kind of reminded me of like how they did Othello, like they made the movie O. Like, I feel like that's how you broke it down. You made it very relatable for us, because Shakespeare could be like very intimidating from a literature standpoint. And you literally broke it down. And I can't remember exactly some of the like analogies that you made, but you made it so digestible and interesting for people that I'm not into like literature English, right? Well, not to say I am now, but growing up wasn't like one of my strong subjects. So your class was dope. Like I said, I remember like the do nows used to have like the writing prompt, and I always appreciated that you kind of prepared us for, like, you didn't sugarcoat things. Like, You kind of like brought things as they were. Like you made write an MFA format. I remember that like prep for like it was just like this is what you get in real life. So this is I'm gonna just be real with y'all. Like,
True.
and it was like you did it in a way where it wasn't intimidating. You gave the respect. Like you made people like respect you, and like I don't think you had too much trouble in your class, right? It was just like I'm gonna
No.
treat y'all at the. It wasn't like you came in and as an authoritative figure, right? It was like
Mm-hmm.
listen, it is so funny you said that that was your first class. I don't think I knew that. And it was like we were learning together, right? But you
True.
like kind of brought like you approached this at a level where it wasn't like you were like this like big bad authoritative person. So I think that helped a lot.
And
But unforgettable
Kyra,
class for sure.
you like what you just like everything that I was thinking about the night before having y'all my first day as a teacher, you just broke it down because I was like, yo, I just want to be that teacher that I needed, right? And what you just said, everything that you just said so eloquently is what I needed as a student. And getting and being able to have that opportunity to teach y'all. And I still have a picture and I didn't want to, I was so tempted to pull
I
it up on
think
the
you
screen.
tagged me on it
I did
before.
one year.
I
One
was
year I
like, what is
tagged you.
going on here?
Yes.
I
One
was probably
year,
got baggy
yeah.
clothes on and stuff.
Yes, one year I tagged you. We were reenacting Romeo and Juliet, and I still got the pictures. There's a lot of y'all I had pictures of from that year in the classroom where we was just like doing magical things, man. So, you know, it's like it's dope just to have you on the show because it just gives me a chance to reconnect with you, one, you know, and then also to give the community a chance to get to know who you are. And we are all about bringing stories, you know, to the community, Kyra. And your story is one, you know, that I definitely want to bring. And we've been connected for years through social media.
Mhm.
And I was like, yo, I want to get Kyra on the show because, you know, low key, she like maybe about 5 years ago, I went live for the very first time. And Kyra it was me and my son, little L, who has an episode. Check little L's
I
episode
watched that episode and I was like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Again, the same sentiments I had about the first live, right? It's amazing.
Yo, yeah.
He's gonna
But
appreciate
you
that, like that's documented and that he could look back, right? And just
true.
the way I've said this to you before, but just the critical thinking, right? The way you approach
Hmm.
him and like you ask him, and it's kind of like the way you teach us, right? You don't talk down on us, you don't baby
Same.
him. You're like giving him questions to critically think, which is a skill that a lot of people don't have as adults. I think it's very critical, right? You need that as you grow, right? So
Word. Word.
um
Word.
and it's interesting, like
Word.
as a parent also, it's not like you're forcing your ideals on him necessarily. You're giving him a way to like build his own personality and let that shine through. So I watched that episode. I thought it was amazing.
I'm happy
So
you watch. Yo, listen, L has come to me and he said, Dad, when can I get on another episode? And I said, L, and hopefully he'll listen to this. I said, listen, your dreads, man, get them retwisted because I'm not putting you on the
it's a
show.
pandemic.
Nah, fam, nah. Like, yo, get your dreads in order. And
Like...
listen, I'm not petty like that, but I'm like, yo, I ain't putting you on like that. Like, you look at the episodes, Al.
Me about your hair.
Yes. You see how people coming. So get it together. Like, get it together. Get your dreads ready, and then when they're ready, we'll get you back. I promised him one episode a season. So when you're ready, at me. Then we
Has
can
he been
we can
helping
go
with his producing side? Because
no
I thought
man,
that
he
was
no Kyra,
well,
he on
small
strike.
Steps, right? Small
Yeah,
steps.
he's on strike. Yo, so we got Kyra in the house. Yo, like Kyra, we have so much history because not only I had her in class, and it's crazy because I had her in 8th grade, but then I never ever had her in class again, and I went over to the high school.
So
never had you in,
people who had you. I would walk past their classroom and be like, "Can I just come in?"
we missed each other in high school. Yeah, Roberta, yo, get your nephew. But we missed each other in high school. But the cool thing is that we had each other in football because you were a football manager at the time.
Right.
So we were still all connected that way.
Right. You got me to play basketball.
Yes. And then I
Tried
tried to get you to play basketball, but you was like, no, that ain't happening, Dr. Raw or Mr. Rawls at the
to.
time.
Mhm.
But and then you leave, you go off to Rutgers, and then you do something that I think is just like, yo, straight powerful. You up and go down to DC or and it's like,
Yeah.
yo, and we're gonna get into all of this because I just think it took so much courage to
Oh,
do
it
what
did.
to do what you did. Before we get into all of the wonderful things that you're doing in terms of program management, all of the creative things that you're doing, I know big shout out to the whole fitness. Yo, I'm just getting in. I just got a Peloton and I'm trying to get fit,
Yeah. Get where you fit
but
in, whatever works for you, right?
we but
It's
you're doing
a
your thing, Kyra.
inclusive, right? I'm
You
trying. I'm
you
like with this pandemic, it's really hard to stay motivated. But I mean, you just got to make it work for yourself. Like I think
true.
that's the best part of running or just being like whatever fitness journey that you choose is just a way to stay motivated, set small goals, and work towards those goals. And then it's the way you want to do it, right?
True.
You're your own competition. So, or at least that's how it should be. I think some people
Mhm.
like the competitive aspect to things, but at the very root of it, right? You're competing against yourself. So, yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. But we're gonna get into that because you're running and
Mm.
you've always been a runner.
I
Like you've it's
have. I
yes,
get that from my
yes,
mom.
yes.
So she shared with me when I was younger, right? She ran track in high school. So I don't know why. Ever since a child, I was like very gravitated towards the track meets and watching people sprint on TV. So as soon as I got the opportunity to, I think I was in seventh grade when I went to school in Irvington. Uh,
Okay.
we didn't even have like uniforms. I think we like practiced in the hallways, but we went to Colgate
Wow.
games in the Armory. I think that was like the one
Yes.
experience that I had, and then I moved. So, but yeah,
Wow.
the first opportunity I got to do it, I was like, I'm running track. But
Yo,
yeah.
and I always remember that about you. What I like to do though, Kier, one of the things, we're gonna get into all of the things you're doing now, but
Mhm.
one of the things that I like to do is start by going back into like growing up, what your experiences were like growing up. And you have a very interesting story in terms of
Yeah.
like moving from, up north in the city,
Hmm.
in pretty much city, and then coming back down to Long Branch where you and I met, and I don't know if
Right.
eighth grade was your first year in Long
Seventh grade,
Branch.
like middle of seventh
Seventh
grade.
grade,
So yeah, I'll
okay.
get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in hearing that. So if you can go back and just give us some
Sure.
feedback and some flavor about growing up.
Right. So I grew up in Irvington, New Jersey. Irvington, stand up, right? So that's right outside of Newark. If people don't know, that's like up north Essex County. I lived there since I was a baby up until seventh grade. So growing up, like I was a tomboy. I had a good childhood. We was always outside. You had the block kids just running up,
Mhm.
playing double dutch, doing all that. So I was a pretty active child. I don't think I played any sports, but I went to Catholic school in East Orange actually, from kindergarten to third grade. And then we moved over to public school education. There was like a school right up the street from my house, which that was another change, right? So I think throughout my whole life, you'll see that this theme of like me having to adapt to change. Um,
Mm.
but so from fourth grade to seventh grade, I went to public school, loved it. It was definitely, I loved it, my experience in public school. The thing was that motivated my mom for us to move. There was other things going on, but the biggest motivation was that up north in like public school up there, I was in magnet classes, right? So that's like kind of like gifted, but it was kind of
Okay.
different up there. Magnet up there was like you could be gifted in art, music, um, like a different language. So we had Spanish magnet. It was all
Mhm.
these different type of magnets, and then they would group all the kids into like one class. So I like that because you had like different skills, like kind of different levels of ability of learning, right? But everyone was like based on one class. I remember for the most part, I went to the public school close to my house, and then like we had to deal with things that you don't really think of as kids, right? But overcrowding in classes. So then for the school that I was supposed to go to, we had to get bused across town to go to Thurgood Marshall. So that was interesting because there was already
Wow.
established sixth grade, and then they added on a whole bunch of classes.
Wow.
So just because our school didn't have space for the growth and like the amount of kids, so they wanted to make sure that there was like adequate like student teacher ratio. So they had us bust across town. So that was interesting. But I loved my time there. Then my mom decided that we were approaching like high school, right? So the way it works there is like generally you don't go to the public schools. Not in Irvington. My mom did not want us to go to Irvington High. No offense to anyone that's been there. It's just like a different experience, right? You got to go through metal detectors. I don't know if it's like that now, but back then it was like you had to. It was just like like all these factors that my mom didn't want us exposed to. I have gotten into, not to say but you had to, if you didn't want to go to your public school, you could test into like magnet high schools, or you go to Catholic high school, which no one was paying for that. So my mom just thought it was a good idea. Like there was always this like notion like we're gonna move to Long Branch. My dad was from Long Branch, so we would come down.
Okay.
Yeah, we would come down and visit my grandmother, go to the beach. That's how I knew it as growing up. A beach town. We would be like very bored when we would go see her because like we didn't know any kids, stuff like that. We would just like play with ourselves in the yard. So it was always like this, we're gonna move. So 7th grade, my mom decided like, oh, I was in 7th grade, my brother was in 8th, so he would have been approaching high school. So she's like, we're moving. So I just remember it just being like a total shock. Me and my brother, we went and like did like a walkthrough of the school before we moved. And we left and we went back to my mom like, we're not moving. It was just a different
Hold
scene,
on, this
right?
was the middle. This was Long Branch Middle School.
Middle school, right? We walked the hallways and we left and we were like, we're not going here. We're not moving. Y'all can move down here, but we're gonna figure out a way to stay where we're at. Just because like it was just different for us, right? It was like kind of culture shock. Most of the kids I went to school with is urban, right? So we didn't have it wasn't very diverse. I don't think I went to school with white people at all. My whole kindergarten through 7th grade experience.
Wow.
Yeah, we had teachers, but yeah, it was, it was just a different scene.
Yeah. Yep.
You had to definitely acclimate.
Yes.
So yeah, we moved to Long Branch in 7th grade, and I think I talked to you about this, but I think the biggest shock to me was one, diversity, which actually ended up being good, right? Because it kind of prepares you for just life in general.
True.
In Long Branch, I definitely think there was a lot more exposure to experiences. Like I remember the electives that we had in 7th grade. I did like photography class, theater, all of that. I would have never been exposed to that. So I'm grateful for Long Branch for the exposure to things and being able to do things kind of normally without having to like look over your shoulder, and which there's a definitely I like that aspect of being in urban towns. I don't know, just like I think it teaches you to like keep your head on swivel, be aware of all your surroundings, like a different type of education, right?
Totally different.
So going to Long Branch, like I said, I think the biggest shocker for me was seeing that, as we discussed this, like, so I talked about how magnet classes, when I first got there, Miss Gizzy was my guidance counselor, Miss Gizzy. But I remember there was like split in levels, like education levels, and it was so apparent. Like I remember like being in school in Irvington, it wasn't, you knew like kind of could gauge, but it wasn't so apparent. But like Long Branch, it was like split into like gifted, level 1, level 2, and then they had that little the like fun group, right? And I just remember I made friends with like who I wanted to make friends with, and they would ask like, "You being Ivy?" Miss Gizzy would be like, "No, like she can't." And so I just remember that was a shocker to me, and being able to see that as a child, like an adolescent, I wouldn't say I was like too small, but that stood out to me. But my years in Long Branch, I loved it. I ran track, did cheerleading. I was like big into sports. So.
You did, like, Kyra, real talk. Like, first of all, you blessed us with so much, and I kind of want to go back because you talked about coming from up north, and pretty much an urban area, and then understanding and seeing the diversity that Long Branch had to offer when you came to the middle school, rather. And you talked about like, it was weird because it was like these tracks. It was
Mm-hmm.
tracking. That's
Okay, that's
basically,
what's tracking. Okay.
yes, that's tracking. So educators
Mm-hmm.
who are out there who just heard what you said right now in their head, they're saying, oh, that's tracking.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like a part of that
Mm-hmm.
because obviously I was teaching you. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember that I had at the time, I had first of all, I started off as an ID teacher.
The team,
Okay.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, the ID team, right? So that's where
Right.
I got my start off. That was my jump
Mm-hmm.
off. And that was basically students who were deemed as underachieving students were in this kind of, it was like a pod, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got my first shot as a teacher, when I taught you, I had you, and you were in the quote unquote gifted, and I don't even know how I ended up as a gifted teacher. But then also, also, I had what you deemed and talked about, which was appropriate, that I had like level 2 students. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way the tracking happened.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that resonated with, well, what I was like when I taught Romeo and Juliet, I taught it to everybody.
Right.
Like what I didn't do is I didn't change my lesson plans for what I taught
Mm-hmm.
the quote unquote gifted and what I taught the quote unquote level 2, because I was level 2 when I was in middle school.
Yeah,
Right.
but like, yeah,
So
right.
go ahead. Talk.
I would, for my thing is like, and just because I don't know, I'm woke right now, like as an adult, right?
Mhm.
You're kind of like, you kind of see it as a child, but you can't count these children out just because,
True.
of tracking and what their ability. They might not be good at math, but you make things digestible. They probably don't know what they like at the time, right? We're still kids, like we don't know, right? So the way that you like present things is very important, right?
Mhm.
Because you can strike interest in someone regardless of their like intelligence level, right? It doesn't then that's why I always remember it. Like you broke it down. I remember like you made it so cool. And we still learned it the way, like we read it the way, but you were like, yo, this is like him, like wait. It was just like really cool. So I think that's very important not to like water down things or feel like count other like demographics out, right? So
Yes. Yes. And I'm just like impressed that you even realized that. I'm impressed that you realized it, but at the same time, I'm disappointed that it was so obvious.
it was
You
obvious.
understand what I'm
I was
saying?
like,
Yo, it was like
that's
right out in the open. Like, yo, we have
mm-hmm.
lower expectations for these kids than we do for these kids over here. Like
Right.
that's what you immediately, as a Kyra, you were in 7th, 8th grade. Like
Right.
that, you were able to identify
But maybe
that.
it was because I think coming from an urban area, you're used to like people counting you out, right? So I feel like we always have to, like where I grew up is like kind of like put your like intelligence on display, right? Because coming
Yes,
from an urban
yes,
area, they
yes,
just like there's like these stereotypes of you, right? So
yes.
luckily I performed well in that area. Like I was in like what's that? They had like these like essay competitions, like I've won one year, like
Mhm.
things like that. But even just normal every day, that's what I was saying. Like I think them having like these magnet classes where you would just like put the kids in like these, like you could be gifted in one area and
But
you
yes,
doesn't deem you to be like less intelligent, right? So I think maybe that's why I was able to notice, because I think I'm always on the defensive of like, oh, I have to show that I'm intelligent. One, because I mean I'm light skinned, but like one, I'm black and I come from an urban area, right? So there was always like dispelling this notion. So hey Ty.
yo, you listen, Ty. Shout out to
That's
Ty.
my
Now,
homegirl.
that's your girl. You said,
Yeah, we were
all
best
right.
friends. We were best friends.
That's what's
Yes,
up.
that's
That's
my
what's up. Well, thanks for
best
she's
friend.
definitely tuning in. We got some
Yes.
folks tuning in. And folks, as we, enter this conversation, if you have any type of questions that you would like Kyra to answer as we move through the conversation, please, don't hesitate to post those questions. And this is I like this to be interactive. So if you have any questions, any comments, please get them into the chat. And I'm gonna pick up, right? So you go through middle school, you go through this transition, head over to the high school. What is high school like? Because I just want to kind of, get
High school
your
was
experiences in
interesting.
terms of that.
High school was interesting. I think, like I know, like I've watched the podcast, right? So it's definitely, I think, the transformative parts of your life. For me, it was interesting because my parents were they were very strict when I was like younger, but once we moved to somewhere. I think it was more so like a protection. They were strict, but like my dad was like the fake disciplinarian. Like he would give you like a little bit of inches of rope to right to like prove
Mm,
yourself that you can have added
mhm.
responsibility. So I think once we took the like aspect of like not being in an urban setting, there was like a lot of freedom. So I think not a lot of freedom, but just to a certain extent of, you could, my parents are very supportive of like, do what you feel is best for you, right? As long as you don't get crazy, like don't get crazy. So I think high school was fun. I started out, me and Nadine were like best friends. We used to run track together. I did like JV, like cheering. I thought I was going to do
Mhm.
cheerleading.
I remember
I
that.
had
I
a
remember
full, like I had a
that.
full, yeah, I did JV cheering. I was probably like athlete throughout the whole year, right? And then I did track, and then freshman year of high school. I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but we did track the USATF, like summer track. That was like
Okay.
one of the best experiences because you get to
Hold on,
meet
hold on,
like,
hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on. Was that with was it Maurice?
yeah. I can't
Was
remember
that
the
with
coach.
Coach Maurice?
Yes, I think so. I
Why
can't
does that
remember.
name?
My
I think he was
memory
at
is terrible, but
yeah. I think
yeah,
it
it was
was
with and we had
Coach
like a
Maurice.
traveling. We
Yes.
had a traveling
Yes.
track team. It was in the summer. It was very grueling. We
Yes.
traveled to like East Orange. Like we would go
Yes.
all over. I think we had track meets in like North Carolina, like Duke. We
Yeah.
went to Buffalo. So that was my first taste at like traveling, and being able to have that experience of like just like
Yes. I remember
stretching,
that.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like track and like I did athletic training. So Miss P, shout out to Miss P. She had me out here
Definitely shout
thinking I was
out.
gonna be
Yes.
an athletic trainer.
Yeah.
So that's how I got
Definitely
into
shout
like
out.
football
Yeah.
managing because I think it was like Tiffany and Lauren. It might have been like Laura Smith. We were like all they were doing, and I was like, I want to do it too. So, but Miss P, she said everyone in her office. She was a great mentor. But she taught us like the ins and outs of like, and she like that's a lot of like it was an exposure to a lot of different things. So I'm always grateful for that experience to like shadow her and like her guidance. But I remember
Those
that
were
for
great years, Kara.
yeah.
Like the track, and I don't know if Natalie was your peer. It's funny because she was phenomenal in track.
Hmm.
But that's when
Oh
I thought about when
yeah.
you was it, and they called her FloJo, and
I don't
she
think I
was
was there around
you
that
may
time.
she may have been a little younger than you, but
Okay.
Mr. Maurice was like a big
Hmm.
coach at the time. Um,
Hmm.
and when you
Oh,
came in,
Natalie, yes, she was there. Yeah, she was a little. She was one
yes,
year younger than me. Yeah, she was
okay,
quick.
yes. 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 So, but I think about that, and then you come over and you do the training, and you mentioned some of the trainers, and
Hmm.
those were definitely good times. But
Hmm.
track, you're basically like you start traveling. That's when you really start traveling and getting out and
Hmm.
about in track.
Yes. So, and then it was I had a love-hate relationship with track. I actually quit track probably like my junior year. It was like one of my biggest regrets. One, not being able to finish something out. Like I still have my mom gave me a lot of my like plaques and stuff from high school, and I was looking at all of, when you get your varsity, like a plaque with all your varsity letters, and I was like,
Hmm.
I wish I had four, things to go across. But I just
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly why, but I know as time went on, like my Mr. Babcock, which he was an awesome coach. Like that
Yes.
whole coaching
Yes.
team was phenomenal.
Yes.
But I remember him switching my events. So I started off in sprinting, and it wasn't like short sprints. I couldn't do like the 100. My events was like 200, 400. And then Mr. Babcock was like, well, we can get you to 400 hurdles and 400. Then he switched me. We went to the Armory. My first race
Mm.
at the Armory was the 800. And I never ran the 800 before. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. But I hated it. Like he put me in that. I like that was probably my first race. I didn't really like perform well. And he's like,
Uh-huh.
you're gonna keep at it. And I was just like, great. So I turned into a sprinter to like a long distance runner. And it was an interesting, I didn't like it because I went from getting medals to uh, just like
You
being
was
mediocre
yeah,
and
you
okay. It's a
yeah,
learning,
yeah.
like in hindsight, right? It was definitely a learning experience. I probably could have got better if I would have stuck at it. I switched into doing cross country, which when I was like a sprinter, it was like, I'm not doing that. But I actually did very good in cross country. I winded up going to the meet of champions which is crazy from Carthage
Which is a big
perspective.
deal. Which is a
Yeah,
big
it
yes.
is. So, it was surprising that I did so well cross country, but being on the track, yes, I ran in NYC, which was a big thing in
True.
track. Like
Yes,
to be
true.
able, that was fun to be able to like race there. Like I would say, sports definitely expose you to a lot of different experiences. Albeit like the people that you meet on the track, right?
Hmm.
Just different
Hmm.
lifestyles.
Coaches,
Being,
yes.
yeah, coaches, just lessons in itself of like being able to like lose, right, and deal with it, like good
Yo, that's
sportsmanship.
deep. Yes. Yes. The
So,
losing part.
and it's also the training part that is still with me today,
Hmm.
right? It's just like I
Hmm.
think as a child, like as an adolescent, though, it's a little bit harder not to be like caught up in like comparing yourself to others or like, am I as fast as this person? Because I think that's what I got caught up in. And me and Mr. Bampire had to talk about it. I was just like, I don't like doing this anymore. I'm not fast. I felt
Hmm.
like I wasn't fast, and he was like, your body type is changing, and you just need to stick with it. And I was like, I don't know about that. So that's one of my biggest regrets. But yeah, I was definitely into the athletics team. You tried to get to recruit me for basketball, which
I
um,
tried. I
I'm
listen,
always open
yo,
to trying new things, right? I'm not gonna say no, but it was a
you
lot of. I didn't realize how much endurance you needed, and also like I just not get the whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like the positions. Like, I'm like,
I,
what? Where she don't. My hand-eye coordination wasn't there, so.
you listen, Kara. And you know what's funny? But here's what I'm gonna tell you, right? And yo, most definitely, Roberta just said you
Right,
went from
I
running
see it. Thanks.
in spirit
When in
because
spirit,
that,
right?
yo, that's what was, and that's what when I first started coaching basketball,
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to get high character people on the
Mm-hmm.
team,
Mm-hmm.
people who had a spirit of victory, and not just basketball, because I could care less if we won basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was trying to build was culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that you were someone who can come and add on to the team in terms of building a winning culture. So that's when I was like, and then you were athletic, obviously, but that's what I was, that's what I was after. And listen, there's a lot of young ladies who said, no, I'm not playing. I can go down a
Mm.
long list of those who said
I
that they
tried. I
weren't
think I
playing.
went
You
to like
did,
a
you
week or
did,
two of
you
practices. Was
did,
like, I'm gonna
you
respectfully.
did.
I'm about.
I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. But yo, talk about, because when I think about, growing, it's funny because even as an educational administrator right now, right?
Mm,
Part of the thing, a lot of the things that I do, I travel a lot. Like and up until this year with COVID, but I'll go
mm,
around and I may speak at different events. I may, go to different things to deliver professional development, all types of things.
mm,
And traveling in athletics prepared me a lot for that, and
mm.
you just mentioned like, oh, we would be here, we would be there, we would, like, how did that, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, but how did that experience, when you look back at it, did it prepare you at all for like kind of fitting into professional travel or into professional meeting and greeting and things like that?
I, in a way, it did. I don't like my experiences. I'm good at compartmentalizing things.
Mhm.
But I think it definitely there's like a poise you need to have when you travel, right? And you need to be prepared, right? Like you're going places. So I think being able to approach and just act in accordance to where you're at, right? So be mindful of like not to offend people, but just the experience of meeting new people and just being in a different setting. I think it's very important for people to travel in general, right? So I've traveled, had the opportunity to travel around the world, and I feel like this I've said this before. My uncle always says this. He's like one of my greatest influences. He's traveled all over the world. Like he's been a professional student probably. Now he's back into nonprofit, but he's always said
Okay.
that like learning is a lifelong experience. But I think you learn as you travel, right? You learn to see how other people
True.
live. Recently, like I think my most recent thing, it kind of like teaches you maybe why people are the way they are, right? So like if you go to a different country, I always try to make it a point to like see like the day to day, like
Yes.
like make sure
Yes.
that where I travel, there's a cultural experience attached to it, and like it explains a lot of why people are the way they are. So I think
Word.
it prepared me a lot just on I think being how to prepare to travel, how to carry yourself as you're out and about in these different places, and then not be it's not it lessens the shock factor of, oh, like I've never seen, so I think the more you
Mhm.
travel, the better you get at it, and like the reaction to being able to engage with people that are not, or from where you're at, right? So
It changes, and it adds a level of comfort. It
right,
adds a level of, oh, okay, I'm familiar with this. Oh, I know how this
right.
goes. Because when you don't have those experiences, sometimes we're a little hesitant to engage
Mm-hmm.
because we're like, oh, I never experienced this. And then the one thing that we'll do sometimes is be like, oh, that's whack. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing that because, but it's really a defense mechanism of like, yo, it's unfamiliar to me. Like
Right,
real talk, I ain't used to this,
right.
So
I think
you
actually that's like
go ahead.
one of the best experiences of college. Also, we might be like jumping ahead, but
Nah, we ain't jump. That's just where I was
um,
going. So talk about that. Talk
so
about
high
that.
school academically, I was okay. Like I was on a AP track for science. I thought I was gonna. So
Mhm.
funny. I have this letter I wrote myself in fifth grade because the teacher was like, "You're gonna write yourself a letter," and open it. I look at that letter all the time. I thought I was gonna be a geneticist from watch. I used to watch TLC. The
Okay.
like, and I thought
Yes.
all these crime shows and stuff. I was like, I'm gonna be a geneticist or an accountant. That's what I thought I was gonna be. So going back how I brought up, like my mom was like very, she wasn't hands off, but she wanted to make sure that she wasn't like too like, what I would say, limiting. Like she didn't want to limit my
Mhm.
experiences, so she was like always like, Kira's good, like you'll be good, you're great at like getting input from others and still doing what you want to do. So academically I was okay. I think I got senioritis, things like that, and I only applied to two schools. Like I was very like and then, like, I think we talked about it, but I went to Rutgers. I did not want to go.
Mhm.
I went with Mary Ellen. I went to visit her while she was at school because she was a year ahead of me. And I was like, I'm going to Temple. It's in Philly. Like, it's in a city. I always wanted to live in a city. And I was like, I'm going to go to Temple. So I only applied to Temple and Rutgers. And I went to Rutgers because I was going to get in-state, like more money. It was like going to
More,
be
yeah,
the
yeah, that funding.
in-state. Yeah, the funding was just better. So went to Rutgers, but I did not really want to go to Rutgers because it had such a bad stigma, right? Like people that go to Rutgers and come back and just don't do anything. So, but I wanted to go to Rutgers. Um, like I wish I would have went to HBCU, but I'm grateful for my experience at Rutgers because I met my lifelong friends there.
Mm.
I went to EOF. I had the EOF program, so I had to go to school a little bit earlier than
Shout out to
folks.
EOF. Shout
Hey,
out.
so for people that don't know that it's the
I needed
Economic
that in my life,
Opportunity
yo.
Fund, but I feel like you go there and it's like everyone's so annoyed, right? Because I think we actually started, a lot of people that was in my EOF
Yes,
program didn't
in the
even
summer.
graduate yet.
Yes, yes.
But it definitely, my roommate actually, she was like definitely someone I didn't think that I would have had exposure to. She was from Harrison, she was like Taiwanese, and me and her held each other down. Okay, we would take shifts, like trying to study, like, okay, you taking that for
Uh,
an hour, I'm going to take it. So like you're annoyed when you're there, right? But it's a great experience in the sense that you come in to the freshman class, the layout of
yep,
the school.
yep,
You
yep.
you also, the EWA program, are your counselors are students that have gone through EOF and
True.
have gone through that same experience, and then they counsel you and like making sure you're okay. So you kind of have like a head start, right? But I don't know if that really helped me a lot, right? So and this is, I don't know, a surprise to many people, but my first year I did not do great academically. Like I don't know, I just was not focused. So I didn't have a great year academically the first year, and that like haunted me throughout college because I had to play catch up, right?
Hmm.
But it was interesting. Like so we came into school, kind of knew the layout. I had friends from EOF. I lived on, Jaleesa talked about this, but I lived on Paul Robeson Interest Floor, which
Yep.
that's like primarily like Black people. So it was kind of like we were in a comfort. I got to pick my room. I picked my roommate, me and Desi. So Desi, we were in school together. And it was so funny because I think
Sanders.
no,
Sanders.
Desi Pratt.
Okay,
Danielle
Pratt.
Desi,
Right.
yeah, she's now Miss Robin.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
So me and her
yes,
were
yes.
cool, but I remember the stigma being like, don't go to school or don't room with someone that you know because you guys
No.
will wind up like not being friends anymore. Me and her are thick
Yeah.
as thieves. Like that is we ended up being roommates all 4 years. She's like family. now. So
I had her too. I had Desi and Danielle actually in
yeah,
class. Go ahead.
right.
Yep.
So yeah, she was my roommate all 4 years. It was kind of like this comforting experience being on the Paul Robeson floor because you had like-minded people. The reason why I was saying I wish I was at HBCU. So Rutgers is very large, and I consider it to be a PWI. And the Black community was
Mhm.
very. It wasn't small, but it definitely was like you on campus, and you're like, oh, that's another Black, right?
Well,
So
hold
you
on,
just.
hold on. Let's pause. You said let's pause.
uh,
So folks who are listening
mm.
know what you're talking about. So you said Rutgers you would consider being a PWI,
Oh
and
yeah, we have to go
PWI
back and explain.
meaning yeah.
Predominant white
So yes,
institution.
a predominantly white institution.
uh-huh.
And then as compared to an HBCU, which
Mm-hmm.
is a historically Black
Black
college or
college
university.
university. Mm-hmm.
So, as a matter of fact, shout out Malcolm X University or Malcolm X
Hey.
College in Chicago. But that would be the difference. So I just wanted to, because there's some
Mm-hmm.
folks who may be listening who may not know, like, when you go through that. But
Mm-hmm.
you were on a Paul Robeson, you were in the
Special
dorm with
interest
Paul
for us.
Robeson or?
No, we were
Okay.
in Metler. That was the name of the
I know
actual, but we had
Medler.
a
Yeah.
floor
Yeah.
designated. It was half of a floor when I first came in. And then when Jaleesa's class came in, we had like expanded it to a full floor. I don't know how we got them to do that, but there for us to keep our designation. So there were a lot of different special interests like dorming things. I think there was
Mhm.
the Latino one, I forget. And then there was like LGBTQ, that one was like next door to us.
Yep.
But we had to do certain programming in order to like keep our status and fund. There was no funding
Oh,
really, but we had to like educate people on who Paul Robeson is, which if people
true.
don't know, he was like probably I think the first African American students at Rutgers. He was a thespian. He played football. He was
He
an
did
orator. Yeah,
everything.
he was very well
Yo.
rounded. So he was a jack of all trades, right? So I think I think we had programming that we had to do for like we had actually high school students come and live with us. That was interesting. That was always fun though, like because you're trying to convince them to come to school. We had like to pick high school students from like urban areas a lot. I think we got to pick where they came from. So we had some students from like Essex County. I think it was more so depending on us to reach out to schools that, contacts that we had to get,
Uh-huh.
I don't know how many students, but there was like this high school outreach program where they came and lived with us for the weekend so they can get exposure to college, which I think was very critical. We had a lot of fun with the kids, but it was like showing them around class, like trying to and I think we didn't try to keep it
Prepared him.
too like stuffy. It was like let's show you what the real experience is. But I think the most part, my opinion, right? I know college is very focused on academics, but I think it's important for some people. School is not for everyone. It probably wasn't my thing, right? But the experiences that you go through in college, I think, make you and shape you to be the person that you are as an adult. So that was
Agreed.
fun.
I agree. I agree. And I
Yeah.
think, Kyra, you go there to Rutgers, and
Mhm.
when you get there, or before you even get there, I don't know. Do you have an idea like, yo, what I want to study? Like
No,
what is
I
it?
did actually. I did. Because I had Miss Barron in high school, and I was good in remember I told you I was in high school. I had the science AP track, but
Okay.
science. I decided after biology, like, nope, it's too many moving parts.
It's
Didn't
not your
like
thing.
it. I had Miss Rich. Chemistry was cool because it was kind of like math related. Physics.
Hmm.
After we got past one part, I remember I had Mr. I cannot remember his name right now. Mr. Sharma. I was in his
Yeah.
class and he was like, there was like one part at the beginning of the school season, we did like vectors and like the subject matter was just not hitting for me. And I was just like, no. But then when we got into things that were like velocity and all these other things that were math related, he was like, Kara, it was me. Like I was like in
Just
Jeopardy
blowing
answering
it
all
out
the
of the park.
questions. He was like, Kara, where have you been all year? And I'm like, just sitting here. Like the other stuff didn't interest me. So when I took Miss Barron's accounting class, did great. I used to do people's taxes because people used to work at Food Town. That was like the place to
Uh,
work when we were younger. I
uh,
know Ben was on the podcast. He was talking about that. I feel like
yes.
everyone worked at Food Town. So I used to do people's taxes, like, just making sure they get their little tax refund check. So I thought I was going to go into doing accounting. And the thing with Rutgers is you can't just like major in accounting. You have to get into the business school. So by virtue of me not having a great
Mm.
first year, that was just out the window. So, you know, I kind of like, I set myself up kind of like and it kind of like haunted me throughout my whole school experience. And even like after, because, so you can't get into the school business, which is common. And then I think the next best thing you would have to do is econ. So that's what I did. I majored in econ and minored in African studies. But that wasn't such an easy track like that. I went through everything because to not have to major in econ. I thought.
So you were avoiding that.
Because I hate the first classes that you take. There's a lot of like lecture hall classes that you take when you enter records, because it's a school of arts, right? So they want you to be well-rounded. There's all the other requirements besides your school that like the whatever you want to major in, right? You don't get into your concentration until your junior, senior year, right? And I'm explaining this for hopefully maybe kids that. So I was taking macro econ, and I don't know anyone that took macro or micro at Rutgers. They know that those classes are fun. I probably took that class like twice, 3 times maybe. So I was trying to avoid everything. I was trying to avoid like the major by like all means. I had a counselor by way of like we had to have these check-ins, everything quarterly, or I don't remember how often we had to check in, but she was like, what are you going to do? Because we didn't have to declare our major until the end of sophomore year, I believe. So I thought I was going to, you know, I didn't get into, there was no way I was going to get into business school. I didn't even apply. But I thought I was going to do education. So, because we had the work, what is that, the work study program?
Yeah, work study. Yes.
So my job assignment was at the School of Education. Miss P!
Shout out, Miss P.
So my job assignment was at the School of Education. So I had the exposure to see like the courses that they were, you know, offering, and just like hearing the talk of like professors and stuff being in the building. And I was like, oh, and I think Desi was doing education. I think that she's a educator now, or actually in administration. So I was like, education might be easy. Let me see if I want to go do that. And then I had a job going from my freshman year going into my sophomore year, where I worked at a construction company as a receptionist. And I think that was like one of my best jobs. It was I was in the office, and we were you know, I was responsible to answer the phones, but you had all these people in and out the office all the time. And there were a lot of program managers. There was architects, program managers, and they were, you know, about their business, but also they could have fun. But I remember like, I think during like looking at paperwork and see how much they made. And I'm like, this is what you do all day? Just look like you're in meetings, you're talking normal. Like it was like, I was like, I was like, what do you do? And they were like, project management. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. I went into, I think one of the prereq classes that you had to do was like this big lecture hall, IT. I don't even remember. I just remember the subject matter in the first like day or week or two was not for me. I was like, let me withdraw from this class before it counts against me. So didn't do that. And then I winded up stuck with economics. So I was like, okay, I thought I was going to do human resources. Went through the whole bit in Gambit. Okay. And then I was like,
you
okay,
said project management.
Right.
Economics, human resources,
and education. I thought I went through all of those tracks, and then finally, like I said, I finally winded up on econ, like at the last minute, because I think I had the most credits. Because that's also like people don't know that, like
it comes down
to major in something. It comes down to how many credits you can apply to that. And like I said, and it went into financials. The thing is, it's so interesting because I don't think you get to see like I don't think you get to see the classes that you could take before you declare that. So as the classes you get to the upper level classes, they were actually interesting and more financial based, whereas like the lower level were theory, and that could be like very tricky sometimes.
Yeah, boring. Yeah, and boring.
Very boring.
Like,
So yeah. So I declared. I was always I almost maybe even thought about majoring in African studies, which I wouldn't have a problem. But I'm like, what type of job can would I be a professor or something like that? Shout out to African Studies program records though, because that was a shocker. Okay, that was definitely a shocker. We had a class Black Experience, and that's what I think all of us learned, that we were, being like, oh, we don't get to learn our history at school. So that was
but hold on. Let's not really, Kyra, real talk.
There's so many things.
Let's not gloss over that, because like I'm working with an alumni group right now.
Mm,
We're working to develop an alumni group right now to focus on just what you said in terms of ensuring that Black history is really a part of the experience in K through 12 education.
all year round.
So, yeah, word.
Mm,
And that's why it's like it's hard to get behind Black History Month. You want to call it African
mm,
American History, Black History started with Black History Week, but it's hard to get behind that because I'm like, all right, there's a space for this all year. And when
mm,
you just said that, it really just spoke to me because it was like, all right, you were in college and you started really that hit you then in
mm,
college when you took that one course. Can you talk
mm.
a little bit about that?
Oh
Like
yeah,
what woke up in you? What woke up in you?
it was just like literally because Ramsey, and I don't know if anyone from Rutgers is watching, but right. Yes,
Somebody
Angela.
listen, somebody watching.
The subject
Miss
matter just
Torres is
slaps
there she
you.
go.
Right, it just slaps you right in the face. You're like, literally, like, it's not we've been lied to, but it's like our history has been hidden from us. There's so many different things and
Yes.
so many,
Yes.
it's not even bad history, right? Like, I feel like sometimes Black history gets like associated with like just the history of us, like the slavery things, but there's so
Mhm.
many important shifting moments and like,
So true.
and I think right now, like you trying to incorporate this, we're seeing that come to light in 2020, right? There's so much
Yes.
socioeconomic things. There's things just beyond slavery, right? That
So true.
attribute to the culture and the climate in the U.S. As like the Black experience. So that class was
Word.
exactly what it sounded like, right? So you're going
Word.
through history to see, and that just opens up kind of like it would be remiss of me not to minor in it because it helped me better. You can go down the track you want to with African studies and learn what you want to learn. And
Mhm.
I felt like I wanted to learn more about my history, right? It was just, that's just me. So it's me and all my friends were like, this is crazy. Like I always thought it was just like, why isn't this in textbooks? Like
Yeah.
I just never
Yeah.
understood that.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
that
it's needed at a younger. That was like the first thing I said. Like, why or like, can we just get real education? It just seems like it's very tailored to. I don't know.
well,
And you're an
it's your
educator, so.
yeah, but it it's Eurocentric.
Mm,
And that's just it. And
mm,
that's why when you said that, I was like, all right, let's stop here for a moment. Because it sounds like it was something that fed your soul. It
mm,
sounds like it was something that made you think like, oh wow, I wish I would have known this, 10 years ago,
mm,
or why wasn't this in the school that I was in?
mm,
And that is one of the reasons why I was like, all right, we got to start creating some alumni groups who are coming back to put pressure on K-12 institutions to be like, listen, we got to up our ante when it comes to teaching African American history and African history. Like we
mm,
we we have to do a better job, of doing just that. So
mm.
that's why I had to pause because I was like, when
No,
you said
yeah.
that, it was like,
It was an eye opener to
yo,
all of us. I think a lot of my
yeah,
friends minored in African studies. It was also like the teachers, the professors there were amazing. Also, like they were very intellectual. Yeah, I minored and I had to do a capstone. We read like I've
mhm,
gone through so much literature that even just from the literature standpoint of Black authors and just
yes,
W.E. Du Bois, like just
yes,
it's I
yes.
can't even remember all the books that we read, but it was like, oh my goodness, right? So you can't really know. It's just like a cliche saying,
Well,
right? But like you don't really know where you're going unless you know where you came
unless you
from.
know your
So
history.
just like right, the
Yep.
exposure at a young age, I think can encourage other young people that where I grew up at, right? Maybe like they could see like, wow, this we are of intelligence. We're just not, So I
And
think
that
there's so much you could dive into with that.
and even thinking about, you mentioned earlier um Robeson, Paul Robeson.
Mm,
And I'm like, yo, there should not be in the state of New Jersey, there should not be one senior who
mm,
graduates who does not know who Paul Robeson was, right?
right. I
You
didn't learn
you
until
should
I
know.
moved.
Like, yo, we
Mm,
like, and I teach my own kids that. Like, I'm like,
mm,
you don't know who Paul Robeson was. Like, because there's like some history, and I think the worst thing that can happen to any group, any culture, is to be erased.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a level of erasure that
Mm-hmm. I was
happens
gonna say that
when
word.
not revisiting and teaching history.
Right. Right. I
So,
agree.
yeah. So,
So,
Kyra,
mhm.
let me move, right?
Okay.
You know, we move out of, so first of all, you leave Rutgers, right?
Right.
And
So I do
you
want to touch on a very
go
important
ahead.
part of
Go ahead.
Rutgers, my college experience. So, because I know a lot of this is like working through adversity and things. So, while I was at school, so I think the two major like roadblocks for me in school was one, I didn't have a great first year, and that's due to my own thing, my own
Mhm.
part, right? But trying to like get back on track from that, and then when I was a junior, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. But even
Mm.
going into that whole experience in general is like, I think in the summertime, like I stayed at Rutgers after sophomore year. Like if you took classes in the summer, then you could like just stay there. So I winded up staying there, like catching up on classes, things like that. But during that time, he wasn't feeling well, and I became like his health advocate, making sure like he went to doctor. Then he was finally diagnosed, and I unfortunately he passed away in my junior year of college. So that experience in itself, and I'm touching on it because I would be in class sometimes, and he would like, this is like at the time of like, I think phones were around and stuff. He would text me. I think he like left me a message one time I was in class. He's like, I just signed a do not resuscitate, and I like left class. So I would like leave.
Wow.
So it was kind of weird because I was like torn with trying to like
Wow.
make up right for my like
Yeah.
academic performance, and then trying to be there for my family. My mom did a really good job of making sure that I stay focused, but suffering that loss was definitely a learning experience in the sense of the one thing that I'll take away from it is that like I think that was my first experience to like life did not stop, right?
Mhm.
Unfortunately. So that happened. And it's just interesting how, I think it was definitely prepared me for the real world where it's like, okay, we're sorry about your loss, but you still have the spinal to take, things like that. So
That
that was
yo,
definitely shaped my life.
let's
um,
well, what was your dad's name?
James.
James.
James Nicholas.
So you're in school. You
Hmm.
start off with a tough freshman year. You get behind the eight ball. To all of you out there who are starting college soon, yo, try to start strong because I did the same
Yeah,
thing. I was
that's
on academic probation, I think, for all of my damn
right.
college career, right? So,
Right.
but then, you get your act together. Um, and now you're dealing with a family challenge in terms
Hmm.
of your dad's health. And and you just said that, like, yo, I just gotta, and those of you do not resuscitate basically means like, yo, if I code, if I'm in the hospital and if I code, just keep it at that.
Hmm.
And you're on a campus somewhere. So you get
I
that
should have left.
message, yo.
I
So
just
you
walked out of
just
class. I was just like, okay, gotta go.
yeah,
So I showed up at Longbridge Hospital, like, what's going on? So
yeah.
and my mom did a really good job. Unfortunately, he had a very short track. I think he was formally diagnosed in November, and then he passed away 5 months, less than 5 months later. But I was at the time very naive, right? I was like, I think for me, in retrospect, you look back and you're like, just cherish the moments that you have, and like, it's very cliche, but like you just, I'm always grateful. That's the way I look at it, just gratitude, right? My experiences with him, um, and what I feel like I was about to get into something else, but uh yeah, just him. It was just weird. Mom, like I said, she wanted to make sure that I was gonna stay focused in school. So they did a really good job of hiding like the fact that he was not doing well. I could tell because I would like be at school, and then I think certain things like Valentine's Day would come up. So I would go home to my mom, and my dad was just like dwindling away. But he was really good. Like I would go home and cook, he would eat, he was on he was not
Yeah.
supposed to be walking around and stuff. He would be eating just because I did things like that. So it was a great, it was hard for me. I was naive. I thought, you want people to stay in your life forever. But it was definitely a learning experience to say the least. He, it's crazy because he was like one of my greatest teachers. And he would always say, you baby me. I think one of like the last place, the way he would like, I told you he would give you freedom. He was good for like making sure like if you were in punishment, he'd get on his soapbox and then say what he had to say and get back off. Like that's what he would say. And then he was good at putting you on punishment and then letting you get reprieve. So like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll let you do this, do that. So, it was unfortunate because the timing is just, I feel like you're like, I was 20, so I feel like you're in that role where you're shifting from like your parents to like kind of like a friend role.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but it's definitely it was a learning experience for me because it's like time does not people, unfortunately you just got to keep pushing, right? So I think that was a defining moment for me. Family dynamics changed a lot too, so that had a lot to do with my future. So that we're gonna get into now.
Yeah. But Kyra, like, I I couldn't imagine. I lost my dad 2 years ago, a year,
Mhm,
not even 2 years. And I'm just thinking about being in college, still trying to like be on solid ground myself,
mhm, mhm,
and going through that. That's really difficult, and then being at your age and trying to figure out, all right, what's important,
mhm,
what I need to make sure I'm doing to make sure my future is right. But then at the same time, being there for my family,
mhm,
that that's heavy. That's heavy stuff.
mhm. It was
That's
very
why.
isolating
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
but I'm grateful for my friends. um like we're family now. That's what I'm saying. For records, I would be forever grateful because
Hmm.
I would develop like a family of friends. Like we're like a group of like 14 or 15 that we like really show up for each other. Like we've
Yeah.
been through it all, and unfortunately like I was the first person to kind of experience that, but I think it changes you in a way. It's so weird.
It does.
It's hard to explain, but I know at that time, at the age, I felt it was very isolating because a lot of people, there were very few people that have gone through that. But it's just like, for me, I'm good at compartmentalizing. And I was like, okay, I just have to literally, if they probably give me like a week or two, I was in the middle of, um, I think spring break was like following the week following, and then we had
Hmm.
midterms. So, some teachers gave me grace, but it was like, okay, you got to
Yeah.
take this
It,
test. So,
yeah. Like the show's got to go on. You got to
yeah.
continue to compete. You got to
Mhm.
continue to do what you need to do,
Mhm.
while also obviously honoring, your father, and
Mhm.
it's,
Right.
and I'm sure that ended up being a motivation when we talk about
Oh yeah,
future.
for
Like
sure.
I'm sure
Mhm.
that was like something like, all right, it's not just me. Like I got this angel, I got this
Mhm.
energy with me now that is going to like
Mhm.
take me to another level. And so you finish Rutgers,
Mhm.
right? And then what happens next?
So when I was graduating, it was 2009. So it was kind of interesting because, like I said, it took me a while to figure out my major, and then I kind of was like on the fence of like, do I take the extra year? I think Mo touched on this, but like it's always like stigma to like
True.
take the extra
Yeah.
year. A
Yeah.
lot of my friends that I would just mention, some of them took the extra year and they're like well off. So in retrospect, I think I was rushing actually because I knew my dad was not well, and I was like, I kind of wanted to. I didn't expect for him to pass so quickly, but I wanted
Mhm.
to like have that moment with him, right? So I kind of fast tracked my like classes and stuff. So I think when I graduated, it definitely was during the time of the financial crisis. So I didn't have a job lined
Okay.
up. That was one thing that I would say. Like I said, that first year, I always tell people I had a mentor in one of my jobs in Jersey, and his son was not doing well in class. And I was like, I will talk to him. That's one thing that I'll always regret is not coming into school focused, and like the academics is a major part as to how the opportunities that you set yourself up for
True.
later,
True.
right? So I couldn't really
True.
intern anywhere, or I thought that I couldn't intern places because of my GPA, things like that, right? So I had a job, like I had a job working in a incentive marketing place across the street from where I was living, and a couple of us worked there. But I was able to like get exposure into, just like our job that I had. It was like do your best at what you can do, and like opportunities will people you will
Mhm.
show like the responsibility that you take more responsibility. So there I was
True.
just doing fulfillment, but then I remember helping the AP or the accountant person with a lot of AP work. So I used to do that. That was like the bulk of the experience that I had. So going into the job market during a
Mhm.
financial crisis with no intern experience or anything like that was kind of hard. Um, So I think after I graduated, I was working at a restaurant in Princeton, which that was interesting, to say the least. My mom actually went to Ivy League there, but so it was interesting to be in the town she went to school in, and that was a great experience also because I worked at a five-star restaurant. So just being exposed to the stature of folks that walked
A
in.
different, yes, a cultural experience. Yes.
Just it's a cultural experience in general. Like now that I'm always grateful because if I go to a five-star restaurant, like I know
You
what
know
they
how
should
to
be
act.
doing, right? It's how to
Yep.
act, but even
Yep.
in the background,
Yep.
people don't realize like them coming to collect your napkin and having it stand, them like letting you like. There's so many things that foodies like take to the heart. So and it's
Hold
so
on.
interesting.
Hold on. Kira, which spoon to use? Which
Oh, things like
fork
that.
to use?
But yeah,
Talk this
I
yo,
wouldn't even be
real
able
talk.
to. Yeah, it was, but it was a community. I love that job. Shout out to like where I worked, but it was definitely a learning experience because my manager at the time, I used to say X, and she said to me, I will never forget that. She said, "Kara, I know you're intelligent, and you know the type of people in and out the door, right?" She's like, "I want other people to know you're intelligent too, so it's ask." So I ever since then, like you learn like little things like that on the job. It's so interesting.
So,
Critical.
but you didn't take that. But see, it's important to understand how you took that feedback
Hmm.
because you could have taken it and said, yo, really? That's how you talking to
Right.
me? Or, but you took it, it seems like in a constructive way.
Right. You always have to be something that I've learned is to be open to be teachable, right? That's very
Hmm.
important quality to have. Um,
Hmm.
I'm lucky to not take things so personally in a professional setting. I don't know how I got that way, but I definitely built like tough skin. Um, so yeah, but coming out of college, that's the only job I really had. And then I started working in a call center uh, for a couple months, and still looking for a job within my field, which was kind of hard, like I said, because I didn't do an internship. So that's why, any younger person that I talk to now, I'm like stress the importance of just making sure that you do take
Yeah.
those opportunities. Because, like I said, I have my uncle in my ear about like things you should do. Study abroad. That's
Yep.
something I will always tell people. It's a learning experience. Talk about that. But interning, that way you can show like your experience. So I was working at Dish Network for a while. My roommate at the time, she had an internship with Standard and Poor's, and she would like just send me jobs all the time. And there happened to be an opening there, a temporary opening. So I started off working there in 2010. So it took me a whole year after graduating to find a job in
To
my field per se. So I went to work at Standard Poor's. People that don't know, it's like S&P 500, right? So that was fun. So yeah, study abroad is definitely a learning experience.
shout out to Kira.
Uh, um, but that was an interesting experience. It taught me a lot. So I at S&P I was a research associate capital markets. So if anyone like wants to know what that is, it's just doing a lot of data mining and things of that nature, providing for municipal, corporate, sovereign bonds. Just think of like bonds, right?
Hmm.
Debt, right? But I started off as a temp there, and how I got that job was I think during one of my jobs in college, like I had this one skill that we're looking for. So like I think looking at databases. So was a lot of data management there, but I worked my way to a permanent position. I had a great mentor manager there that was like, you have critical thinking skills. A lot of people don't have that. So he would get in my ear, and I always say be like teachable because he taught me a lot, but didn't spoon feed, right? So, and it would be like super frustrating. You would like second guess yourself. He's like, I know you're capable. He was like, but I'm not going to do the work for you. I'll show you how to get
Mm.
there and confirm if you're right or wrong, but I will never give you the answer. So there was a lot of learning experiences from that job that I'm super grateful there for working there. Just in general, just being in the city at the time, I don't think there were many people my age that had to like navigate
Who
working in the
had that
city.
kind of, yes.
Yeah, post 9/11. So I used to always be nervous traveling, but it was great. Like I was basically working on Wall Street. I had to walk past Wall Street to get to where I worked. Um, so that was a great experience working for a corporation. I also had exposure to working with offshore teams. For people that don't know that, you have like teams that work in different countries, like, and for my case, it was like India, right?
Wow. India?
Unfortunately, yeah, in
You said
India.
India?
So
Okay.
yeah, so you have to like learn how to work with other people, right? And it was definitely a cultural learning aspect to that also. But I was there for about 5 years, and then the company had to do layoffs because it started. I feel like we were still going through a financial crisis at the time, and they were looking to eliminate like redundancies within the company. So I get laid off at 26, which was
Wow.
very traumatic, right?
Had to
A
be.
group of
Because
us,
you feeling like I'm on my way. I got a good job. I have a
right?
career.
Right. But
Bam.
it was kind of like inevitable. They were like, they were sending out emails. Everyone, a lot of people were getting chopped. But that was experience itself because you think you got it good, right? You get comfortable. There also when I started to get back into running during that time frame. So I remember not being too active. There was these two women that joined our team that actually were avid runners, and one of them got me to. I don't know. It was a combination of her and some of my old like friends from Rutgers. There was a 5K at Rutgers called the Big Chill that in lieu of a registration fee, you bring a gift for a child during the Christmas, just the holiday season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they fill the whole gym with gifts and then you run 5K. And I think I'm pretty sure it was one of my friends that got us to do it. It was like a group of 5 of us, but I was like, sure, it's at Rutgers, let me do it. And then I think it winded up being like a recurring annual thing that we would do. But I also had great mentors there from a running perspective. I think that's when I did my first half marathon because I was like, and this is so interesting because this is when Jaleesa started up with her fitness
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I remember reaching out to her like, I either want to get fit or do a race. And she was like, you can't do both, right? So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I think by virtue, I was a 5K shorty, do all these 5Ks. And I think one time, one of my friends was like, well, let's do this half marathon. And I was just like, 13 miles? Okay. But there was, training plans. That's something you plan for and you build yourself up to. And I did that during my time in New York. And I thought that was great working in New York. That was one thing I took advantage of. I'm working in New York. I'm going to go here, there, and everywhere just to take advantage of
Experience.
it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I would never live in New York, but I do miss working there. It
Yeah.
definitely teaches you a lot. From there, after being laid off, it was interesting timing. I had just actually like went into like co-parenting at home, so that allowed me time to like help with the renovations and like manage that. But I happened to get into my next after that. I worked for still financial services. I got into project management, program management. Didn't have any experience, but I think it was whatever was on my resume, just having experience in financial markets and services, and just like some of the skill set that I had. Got into program management. I was the right hand to a program manager with a top firm initiative, managing a lot of people. So for anyone that's watching that doesn't know what that is, it's just managing either for program, it's like a set of projects, make sure you're staying on time, budget, and scope of work. So it's a lot of moving parts and places. So and it's just kind of like you're managing people, but you're not their managers. You're trying to make sure that they're staying on schedule. You're identifying issues and risks. That job taught me a lot in the short time that I was there. I think I was there for 3 years. Taught me a lot. I'm thankful.
That's heavy work
It's a
because
lot.
it's
I worked a
money. That's
long
money
hours.
work. That's like you are basically it's quality control.
Right.
And it's ensuring that people who are investing in whatever it is, that their product is going to be on time,
Right.
on budget, right?
Right.
Like
And we
those,
had the
yes.
top initiative in the firm, and they were on my boss, right? Okay, so it was like I was the go-to person, lean on everything. So I had like I said, a great learning experience there to be just thrown into program management without any, and this comes full circle because remember, this is kind of what I wanted to do, get into
From
school.
the
So
gate, yes.
yeah, so having this experience is like I'm staying here forever. Like I love it here. It's something different every day. It's not monotonous. So like you're doing something different. There's issues and risks that comes up all the time. Me and you talked about this about why I think it's important to have Little L on the show. Like you said, you started a book club with him, but you sit in rooms with program management, all different types levels of people, right? So being able to talk up and across, that's very important. I used to be in a room with a lot of big people, okay? And being able to deliver, right? So a lot
But
of
how did
budget
that,
manage.
Kira, talk about that though? Because I think that that's important because a lot of times, when we move, up in our career track, sometimes we're sitting around tables with folks that were like, I can't believe I'm sitting around a table
Right.
with such and such, you know, and that is when I think that we get that imposter syndrome starts to
Oh,
seep
for
in and we
sure.
feel like we don't belong there. So can you talk about that a little bit about like, yo, how you overcame that and feeling like you did belong?
It took a while. It's so funny that you said that because I was thinking of touching on that because I wouldn't say it. And I
Hmm.
had this conversation, thankfully, with my aunt that helped guide my move down to here. Like, she was like, I say that now, even, right? Because when you're a female, so being in IT space, is, as a female, is dominated by men, one. And
Hmm.
then two, you
True.
just wanted to sound intelligent, right? So for me, I'm like, do I belong here, right? Because I didn't go, like, I didn't have a background. I was very new. But you just have to find that confidence in yourself. What helped me build the confidence on the job was I'm a quick learner. So, once I got the feel of things, that I was my boss's go-to person. I used to take notes. Like, that was her. Like, she would always call on me. Like, what did this person say in this meeting at this time? Because I
Yeah.
would have them.
Yeah.
So just being able to prove yourself, it shows. And then, like, I think that built my confidence with, like, uh, she's gonna be my go-to person. Call on her if you need me. And then
Hmm.
I think there was one defining moment where there was like an experienced person working, and I had like kind of, he thought he knew what he was doing, and then it was like, no, this younger inexperienced person knows more. So that kind of helped me boost. But I kind of never really got over it, to be honest. It was just like you just have to give your like best effort, and it kind of goes back to this um childhood notion of like you having to prove yourself, right? Are you
Yeah.
from this area? I am a
Yes.
female, I'm black. I need to show that. It's kind of like you're putting
Yes.
on for your culture, kind of like I need to show
Yep.
that I'm intelligent. Yeah, so it's kind of weird because I still sometimes like, do I belong here? But you just have to be confident in yourself. Like, I know what I'm talking about. I am the person, right? So it's kind of like these mantras that you have to tell yourself. So
It's real, and you know, those of you who are out there who feeling like you're in those circles, um, it's don't feel bad for feeling that, first of all,
mm,
but there's a level, I think, Care, what you said, some of it is preparation. It's like, all right, you have to like I always felt I had to over prepare, right?
right,
Um, and then I also, as an educator, and when we go all the way back to about full circle, when I was introducing you all to Romeo and Juliet in 8th grade, it's because I wanted you to realize that, yo, I can spar with seniors right now,
right, right,
because, you know, that is what educators and adults need to be doing, is to setting you up so that when you get on these stages, you don't feel like, yo, I'm ill prepared to
right.
be, you know, on this stage. So that's why I'm happy you talked about that, because I think that that's a really, really important thing to talk. Because even in my career, sometimes I'll sit in certain spaces, and for a minute, you know, I'm like, yo, might as well. It's funny because I think it's in Jay-Z and Kanye, they had NIGGSs in
Mm,
Paris.
it's provocative.
And yeah, it's part of it's like, yo, I ain't supposed to be here.
Be
You know what I'm
here,
saying? And
right,
it's like, yo, he's talking about imposter syndrome.
right,
Like, I'm
right,
looking around like, yo, I ain't even supposed to be here, you know?
right.
So I just think that that's always important, you know, to
Being able to read
bring.
the room.
Yeah.
Yep. It's always, I
Yes.
mean, it's just
Yes.
preparation for sure. I'm not, I don't know if people get to, I get really nervous. I'm speaking publicly, but I find
Mhm.
that the more information I have on the subject matter and like
Yeah.
the preparedness is when I feel very comfortable. So,
Yes.
I think, like
Yes.
you said, having that preparation as a child, though, you'll be able to do whatever you want. So, I think
Changes the
that's very
game.
important because you don't know what space you'll be sharing with. You share space with all types of people at
Mhm.
all levels. So that was like one of my greatest experiences as far. And like I said, I used to be in a room with CIO, the top legal, because I was working on
Mhm.
the top firm initiative. So you have all these. Uh, Big, I call them big wigs, right? You have all these
Mhm.
executive management in one room, and you just have to, show up, right? You have to show that you're capable.
Yes.
You don't want to embarrass yourself, and you don't want to embarrass your. I never want to embarrass my manager. So,
Wow.
because she, and that, like you said, that was a very taxing job. Like you get married to the project, right? Because
Mhm.
it becomes your child. Like you want to make sure it gets delivered, because there's so much on the line. So I used to work very long hours, like these 60-hour weeks. I remember being on a call at like
Wow.
2, 3 o'clock in the morning one time, trying to get this budget together for a presentation one time. So it's a lot of work,
And
but it's you get to see the end result, right? You get to see. I think that's one of the best things about program project management is that you get to see the output of all your hard work. So
and you know, and that's important, you know, and I think that you talk about putting those hours in. We talk about, you know, overcoming that fear of, do I belong? Because that's the translation of
mm,
imposter syndrome. Do I belong? You know,
mm-hmm,
I remember in Michelle Obama's book, she talks about like, yo, when I finally arrived, quote unquote, to these tables where there are, you know, supposedly the most brilliant people in the world sitting around this one table, and I sit down and I start to listen, and I quickly say, hold on, this is the table that I feared, this is the table that I
mm-hmm.
thought I
That's
didn't
exactly
belong
how
in.
it goes.
Yo, because when you but that's why I'm a firm believer, Kyra, in access.
Mm-hmm,
I believe in this, right? This is what I believe, that the gaps that exist is because certain folks don't gain access to
mm-hmm,
certain tables, right?
mm-hmm,
Because if we gain access to that table, then we're schooled and we know,
mm-hmm.
oh, I belong
What to
there, and
expect, right?
plus more. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but when we're kept away from those tables, that's when that inferiority starts to set in, and we're like, oh, do I really,
Really.
you know, do I
Mm-hmm.
really belong? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I
and that,
agree.
yo,
I still have those
that's
moments, not of imposter, but what you're saying as to inferiority, and that's like something that
yes.
I'm still trying to work on overcoming, or just that feeling, right, of making sure you feel included. But
Yes.
that is very important, like you said, access, like trying to break those, and I think that's the work that we do, giving or trying to find pockets of how to get involved in giving back to like Sankofa, right? Like reaching back, like
Mm-hmm.
going as we
Sankofa, yes.
climb, right?
Yep. Yep.
So bring up as we
That's it.
climb, right? So that's very
Yes.
important. One
Yes.
of the other
Yes.
big things there was that mentorship. So um, I'm thankful for all my jobs that I've had older, experienced people latch on to see like my potential and just like
Mhm.
and you have to like, I feel like that's also a thing to be able to grow and stretch, is like being open to being mentored. And it was just interesting because, you know, I had these older experienced people in the field for uh, like 20 plus years, you know, coming to me and talk, like either like not venting, but like telling me, sharing me their experiences. One of
Mhm.
them, like I said, Warren, will never forget him. His son was in school at the time. I think I can't remember. He was in school and he would like tell me like, I can't, you know, he would watch his grades and stuff. And I was like, do you want me to get on the phone with him? Because I'll tell him. Because it was interesting because Warren was paying for his kid's college. So I was like,
Uh,
your dad is paying for your college and you acting up, like, let me go on the phone with you.
like, what are you?
So
Yeah.
I've never been shy to share my experience, and just make sure that like people are realizing, or younger kids are realizing, like, don't discount yourself,
Yes.
like by, you know, don't put yourself at a disadvantage. Just, you know,
Yes.
give it your all, focus on your academics.
Yes.
So,
And which is really, really important. I'm like, yo, when it's funny because I'm going back now to meeting you, you know, as an eighth grader, and I would have thought that you were in Long Branch your whole life. You know, I didn't have any background knowledge on you,
mm,
nor
mm,
any other the children who came into that
mm.
class. You know, in that class, is one of those classes that will always stick out to me. Amber was in that class.
Oh,
I
I
remember,
used to bump into
yo,
Amber in
it's
coming home from work in New York.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
Amber.
What brilliant,
Mm,
brilliant people
mm,
were in that class. Mark
mm.
Slocum was in that class. You
Oh
know, I
man,
go,
I don't. I
yeah,
wish I could
listen,
find Mark. He was so
I,
brilliant.
yo,
Oh
it,
my
it,
goodness gracious,
yo, it
talented.
was
I always
wild.
think about him.
Yes,
I'm like,
yes,
where he was, that like
yes.
spice, a little razzle dazzle you needed, okay? Because he
And it
would
was,
keep it real.
Yo, real talk, real, and you know, it's funny because, and I don't know if Colleen was in that class, but she recently
She
reached
was
out to
in
me,
her.
Colleen Yerves, right?
Yep.
So those, like, that class, you know, and this is real. This is, yo, first of all, teachers out there, you first year teacher, you teaching period, yo, go into those classrooms understanding that it's a community. All right. It's not the time for you to be on no flex. It's not the time for you to be like, yo, I'm the king. I know everything. Yo, it's a time for you to share community with young folks. And trust me, there may not ever be a time for you to do that again. So understand the magic of that. Understand the magic of sharing a space with young people and free ideas. All right. And that's what that classroom was, man. Listen, I was all over the place. I should have been fired. I was using stuff. I was bringing you all to things that had nothing, like it wasn't even written on the damn curriculum.
Wow.
But it was like, yo, I feel like this is what saved me. These are the type, this is the kind of the education that I feel like we need, and these students need. And when I think back to you then, and now I'm talking to you now, and all of the things that you have gone through and experienced, and it's like, yo, a part of you is in me, a part of me is in you.
Right.
And is there anything greater? You know, like, is there,
to be able to like see that reflection back, right? It's so interesting.
Yes.
I think that's so rewarding as a teacher. So being able, because I have a tendency, like I have a very overactive imagination, but when I see children or like younger, I always try to fast forward, like wonder what type of. So I wonder how that is for you.
That's it.
See how we've grown, right?
Yes.
I'm old enough now to know children that are born and go into college. I'm like, I remember when you were born.
Yes.
Like, that's so crazy. So.
Word. And that's why I'm seeing Kayla, you know, and it's so crazy because that's why I will always be thankful to the position that I've been able to hold in terms of being an educator, because I see Kayla, right? So Kayla's going back and she's in here all night with you, Kyra. And she's someone who came years later than you in terms of my career. But I've learned so much from her, you know, and the young folks that she was peers with. But I was always doing what you just said. Like I was kind of like thinking future, like and then speaking that into kids. Like here's
important.
where you're headed. Yes, here's where you're headed. Here's where you're headed. And you know that's what this thing is. That's what this thing is all about. And that's why I believe in reaching back and bringing forward. And you know, I'm very thankful for you to come onto the show.
I'm very honored. I was like, what do I have to share, right?
Listen, it's so much, Kyra. Yes. And it's not just a story, because at the end of the day, someone who's listening may not be listening now, but this is now in the archive, who may listen and they may say, oh, wow, you know what? That's the story I needed to hear. But then on the flip side of that, Kyra, there's some educators who are listening, like a Tracy Powers listening, and they're like, yes, I was doing the right thing. So it's like, it's affirming to so many spaces, you know? So, you know, don't ever think that your story is, it's too little, you know? Yes. Shout out to
you must be. And that's what one thing I always said,
Freeman.
that like you did not talk down. You were not, you're like, you're never going to go anywhere. Like, I think you did the total opposite.
It's definitely
to like show what strengths that we had and where we could go. Right. So
true indeed. True indeed. Here's what I want to do, Kyra. I want to, and I don't always get the chance to do this in this show, but before we close, I want to ask you if there was like, if you had an opportunity to go back to your high school self and give advice to the high school version of you, what that advice would be and why.
So I would tell myself, don't be afraid to say no, and don't be afraid to hear no, right, from people. So I think it's important for me. I'm a very nurturing, giving person. And right now I'm in DC because I wanted to do something for myself, right? I felt like I've always wanted to move, and I've always been a yes person. Yes, I'll help you with this. Yes, I'll help. And I found myself being like immersed in other people's lives and not worrying about myself. But like, how can you pour from an empty cup, right? So that's where I'm at in
Wow.
my life right now. And I'm
Wow.
learning the weight of like that's lifted by being able to say no to things that don't align with your spirit. Just things that you just don't want to do, right? So it's hard for me because you always want to tell someone yes, you always want to be helpful. You want to like you said, pull as you climb. But
Mm.
for me right now, I have a good friend that tells me you need to learn how to be selfish, right? So in high school, I felt like I was a yes person. Yes, 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 I'll do this, do that. Not really worrying about myself and like pouring that into myself before just like worrying about other things. That's one. And then two, not being able to hear no, right? I think rejection
Mm.
builds character. Being able to hear no and go through like not being afraid to fail, right? Because that helps you grow. And I think I discounted myself a lot from a lot of different experiences from like applying to programs, just certain things, even in college, right? Like I will always be like, I can't apply to this. My GPA is not high enough. Like you don't know where you wind up in life, right?
So
So
true.
as
So true.
I'm learning now, I always ask now, you're just gonna have to tell me no, right? So you count yourself out of those experiences where you don't try. So I would definitely
Wow.
tell myself that.
Wow. Like, yo, I needed that, Kara. I'm real talk. You gave me a word because the second part of what you said really resonated with me. Um, one of my goals, right, is like eventually, I want to be a superintendent of schools, right?
Oh,
That's what I want to do,
great superintendent.
right? And look, real talk. I was talking to someone recently about that,
Mhm.
and the person asked me, and they were like, "Well, have you applied to any superintendent school jobs?" And then
Wait.
I'm like,
Mhm.
yo, I had to check my own self because I'm
All
like,
right.
yo, real talk. The answer is no. And I'm sitting here like making subtractions of saying, it doesn't happen for Black folks. It doesn't happen for
Mhm.
Black men. And when you just said that, it just kind of woke up something in me, to
Mhm.
be like, well, are you just accepting no? Or are you making folks say no? Like those are two different, totally different things.
Things. Right. Right. I've
And I
definitely
think,
learned that by coming down here.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was one of my biggest things to get on the ledge because when I decided I wanted to move down here, I'm so thankful for my godmom, Tanya. But she was very critical and like just make I would count myself out of all type of experience. Move, like you know how
wow,
much of like a big
wow,
lift that is. I can't do that. Like, and she would just like be like, "Well, did you?" You know, a lot of my family would approach me like, "Did you try?" And I'm like, "Well, not really." So you don't really know until you actually
yep,
do it. She had a way of making things so like she's so graceful. So it was just like made a way of making things so easy, right? So it was just like I expressed her, I'm like, I love to live down here. And she was like, okay, well, we'll make that happen. And
yeah,
I've always been blessed to be around people that are not going to do the work for me. They'll
mhm,
match my effort, right? And I think that's very important to like people
true,
need to understand that. They'll match my
word,
effort. But she made it so easy to move down here. Just being able to do something I would never be able to do, right? It was just like you do it, like you said you were going to do it, so make it
man.
happen. So right. So that's
I
definitely.
love that, Kira.
Hmm.
I love that, and being able to say no,
Hmm.
um, and not feeling guilty about that.
Hmm.
I think both of those, you just to be able to accept, like you just, that's a whole word. Like I'm just like to be able to accept no and then move
And be able
on
to say no, right?
and be able to say no. Like but that's why I'm
Exactly.
always like, people be like, "Oh, you're a teacher," and I'm like, "Listen, I'm a learner. I'm a I'm a
Hmm.
I'm a classroom community organizer because I'm
Right.
learning
Yeah.
just as much from these young people as they are learning from me."
Mhm.
That's another example, of that. Before we say peace to the community,
Mhm.
Kara, I just want to, hey, first of all, thank you, again
Thank
for
you. I
taking the
am so
time.
honored to be
Yeah,
on the
listen,
podcast.
this is dope. It's taking me back, and it's just dope. But the other thing I want to say is, like, if there's anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about, that you would like to talk about, just to take some time to talk about anything or say anything that you wanted to say that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
I think we covered everything that I wanted to do, right? But talk about. But I just wanted to thank you for being able to give back. I actually was in a class about the 15 laws of growth, or I forget, it's by John Maxwell book. But
Okay,
it was in a
yes,
course that
yes.
my aunt facilitated, and one of those things is one of
Maxwell.
the last law is just being able to give back, right? So that leads to growth also. So being like, I think the saying is like, growing others as you grow. So I think that's
True.
very critical and vital. I think this is a great platform that you created for people to access, because I go back while I'm like working, right? Just to have to listen to. It's very interesting. I'm listening to all these other people. I'm like, yo, gems drop all the time, right?
True.
But I think that my biggest thing was just kind of what I covered, like, don't count yourself out. I think moving to DC was one of the best experiences of my life, to be able to find peace within myself, right? And do things on my pace and accordance. And it takes a lot of bravery, like, it takes a lot of courage to just get up and relocate. But like I said, I'm having a great time down here. I'm blessed to be amongst a lot of encouraged, people on the same track and mindset as me, and just being in a community of people that want to see you do good. So yeah, that's all I have.
Very well said, Kyra. And we didn't even like we haven't even gotten, yes, it's like, it's so, there's some of these episodes they're gonna have to be 2 episodes. But because there's so much that we didn't even get to. And we almost been going 2 hours, and it's just like we haven't even gotten to so much.
Right.
So I'm definitely coming back, to tap in for more, and I thank you. I think the community out there, those of you who tuned in this week, tonight, we brought you another episode, and hopefully you get something out of it. And I know you have. Just looking at the comments, I know that you all have gotten things out of it. And we're going to keep bringing this. Like, as long as I'm here, I'm like, yo, we're going to showcase these stories. Because those are the things that motivate us. And I wish I had these kind of stories when I was coming up, because it may have stretched. Listen, because we didn't even get into the engineering piece, which that's why I'm like, we gotta,
right. We'll do another. I actually like the format with like just maybe pulling in a lot of different people, but there's a lot of different things, like misconceptions. I think just this itself helps, I think, people to navigate or just like debunk a lot of, we're coming real, right? We're coming very not high level. You get what you get. So
word, like a conversation, real talk, and I think that may be the approach. So I'm gonna work on something with that, and bringing maybe a group, and just doing a group cast where we talk about, those kind of things, and bring it to the people. So once again, we have gone back and we have brought forward. We have climbed, and we've built, and we've brought some other folks. I think you said that, Kyra, as we climb, we got to pull along. I think that those things are really, really, really important. So as you move into this next week, right, you walk into a room, keep your head high, keep your shoulders high, right? You sit at a table. Word. Like, keep those shoulders up, keep that, keep those eyes up. I used to coach, and I used to always tell the girls, like, body language, like, that was really
body
important.
Language. I learned that. Yeah, I learned that.
Body language.
SMP.
Yes.
Like, you don't want to. I teach that. Like, I try to teach little things. So, and just not to belabor, but I think being approachable, how we said, like, coming real, I've always tried to incorporate that into like my mentoring style. And like, I'm still trying to figure out how to incorporate that in it being an acceptable management style, right? But because I'm not gonna, I want people to know that they can be their authentic selves, and not have to sacrifice. And I think we need to like get into that a little bit more. But for sure, body language reads. So I always get back when I tell people, make sure you come into a room with your notebook, because be prepared, right? And then you can sit up straight, and that's where you can be taken seriously.
Those little, Kyra, those little those little things, man. Like you talked about bring a notebook, right? Like
we had an intern that came to a meeting and didn't bring a notebook. I pulled him to the side and said, listen, you need to always come prepared, right? Pen and notebook. You don't know what meeting you go to. You could be going to a meeting to say happy birthday money. You come in with a notebook, especially if you don't know what the subject is. So I think that's actually helped with a lot of people, like, younger folks, like latching on to me, is that I'm gonna tell you, like, don't get it twisted. Like, you need to be like, I can keep it real, but when it comes to being professional, you're gonna be professional. So I'm gonna try to things that I didn't always think of, things that I didn't know or didn't come naturally to me, that I want to, like, just make sure people are prepared, right? So I think that
listen, that's why it's so much more, like, to get into, and an hour, or in this case almost 2 hours, is just not enough. But like that preparation, and I hate to say it, but sometimes looking the part and feeling the part
is very important for us.
Yes.
For me, being Black and woman in tech, I'm still, pushing that forward. Like, you gotta break the stigma. So yeah, very important. But this is a very important, that what you're doing. Like I said, thanks so much for having me on the show. I am honored.
Word. Listen, I'm blessed to have you, Kyra, and blessed to have crossed paths when we did. Things worked out in the universe for all of that stuff to happen. So definitely, definitely a shout out to you, and much respect to you, to the community. Like I said, we will be back. We're not going anywhere. We're gonna keep bringing these kind of episodes to you, to bring the truth from the people. So with that said, I'm wishing you all health, and good health in all levels, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health. That's really mental health. Those things are really important. So with that said, we will be back next week with another guest. I have a special, another one of my formers coming next week that's going to bring some heat for you. I'm not going to drop it yet. We'll wait until you see the flyer. Flyer. Yeah, you'll see when you see the flyer, and definitely tune in. And with that said, we're going to bounce out once again to two students, to my former students, Mr. Encore's beats, and we're going to go to Anthony Stevenson's video, doing his thing on the video. Peace out, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, everyone.
It's an encore banger. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Purpose and practice. Keep your mental sharp. Learn all the tactics. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Purpose and practice. Podcast game. He got it.